Are shields and banners important? So, shields and banners. I have to admit I was always scared of trying to freehand my banners back in the day, and to tell you the truth I still am a little scared now. However, I do think there's one thing we cannot disagree with, and that's the fact that freehand banners and shields always look absolutely amazing, if done well of course. Sadly, we don't seem to see many freehand banners around these days. It seems to be more they are pre-moulded into the plastic, so you just get to paint the design that's already on there, which I feel is a bit of a shame. You can't really beat seeing someone's strange designs they've come up with using their own imagination. Anyway, let's jump in and have a look. Shields and banners. One of the most stimulating and rewarding aspects of figure painting is the creation of citadel-esque shield and banner designs. Fascination for the subject led to the production of the arcane armorials, which are featured in White Dwarf issue 90. While these prove popular, many people prefer to create their own. Such designs may take a variety of forms, from simple symbols and runes right up to the full-blooded shield mini paintings as you've often seen in White Dwarf and online. This decoration doesn't have to end with shields and banners though. You can apply the same techniques with wild abandon to any flat surface found on a miniature, such as armour, cloaks, bodies, tunics, weapons, vehicles, and even dreadnoughts. They can all be adorned with symbols, runes, motifs, patterns, heraldic devices, mottos, and tiny pieces of fine art. A well-painted shield can be the focal point of a model, as well as capturing and amplifying the ethos behind the model itself. Here we see a citadel decal and intricate paintwork used together to form the focus of this Space Orc banner. One of the biggest problems in painting banners can be handshake. Painting banners requires the finest detail, and you'll need to be comfortable and secure. Here you can see the left hand is held against the tabletop and the last 3 fingers of each hand are interlinked for stability. This allows you to keep a very steady grip on the shield with your left forefinger and thumb, and the brush with your right. Also notice the thumbnail palette. This brings us neatly to where to find the right imagery for your individual or regiment of models. Games Workshop publications and those found online can themselves be a source of reference used by many people, and that's fine. But if you're looking for something a little different, you'll need to look no further than the shelves of your local reference library. And the study and collation of such material is a rewarding pastime in itself. You may be aware that the imagery seen on the figures presented in heavy metal is more often than not rooted in historical sources. The circular red ogre face with black, wavy, radiating lines was taken many years ago from a mixture of ancient Babylonian symbols and Greek Gorgon shield designs. Similarly, sun and moon signs were developed from medieval alchemical symbols, and many other well-known citadel motifs have their roots in heraldry and symbolism. A secondary but no less rich source of material is the field of fantasy and, to a lesser extent, classical art. Whether it's art books, paperback covers, or album sleeves, they all have an abundance of ideas the figure painter can borrow. Animals, figures, flowers, the list is endless. Finally, the natural world itself has the greatest amount to offer. Not everyone may have access to skulls, but anyone can keep a file of photographs from magazines and so on. Once you've decided on your image, how do you transfer it to a shield or banner? The simplest solution is to paint flat colour onto a base colour, say a simple black rune on a red or yellow background. Use only your finest brushes with the straightest bristles for painting detailed iconography. In fact, it would probably be best to reserve 1 or 2 brushes specifically for this purpose. It would also help if you used diluted paint or inks, since a free flow will facilitate fine line work. There's obviously no substitute for practice when it comes to honing your hand and eye coordination. At this point, it's worth giving a little thought to the choice of colours and their relationships to each other. Yellows, greens and blues are appropriate for the neutral and good races such as humans and elves, while yellows, russets and beiges are best for dwarves. Blacks and reds suit evil races such as goblins. These are only general guidelines, of course, and not hard and fast rules. But then a crack unit of flesh-eating kamikaze orcs with a pink banner would not be appropriate. The simple rune on a coloured background mentioned earlier is probably the best placed for a beginner to start. The next step could be to paint a silhouette of an animal against a coloured background, just as the ancient Greeks often painted their shields with stylised animal motifs. A book on Greek mythology or ancient Greek pottery from a library would be the perfect reference book at this stage. When you feel you have mastered these simple designs, try adding light and shade into the background colour. Let's take a red shield as an example. Mix a little purple and red together to paint a shadow under a round shield rim, as seen in the diagram here. Blend this colour into the base colour while it's still wet. Then thin it with water and apply it on top of a dry base colour. Keep the shading subtle and to a minimum so as not to dull the overall colour. Now mix a little white and red together and add a highlight to the top of the shield to simulate the effect of sunlight. Don't paint this in the middle, since your motif will obliterate it. Blend the edges of the highlight into the base colour carefully, and finally add a dot of very light pink into the middle of the highlight itself. Now, practice painting silhouette motifs on this developed base colour. You can try to add some detail to the motif as well. If you've chosen an animal, try adding an eye or a mouth and teeth. Practice adding highlights to the silhouetted figure before you paint on any detail. Finally, simple outlines around the motif can add that extra touch of smartness. The ubiquitous red ogre face provides a few exercises to help you achieve these effects. Needless to say, the techniques are universal to all full art solutions for your iconography. Start with red as your base colour. Next, bearing in mind how you shade the depressions on a 3-dimensional model, imagine where the shade falls on the ogre's face. This will be primarily in the eye sockets, down the sides and under the nose, in the cheek depressions and in the mouth. Blend each area of shading very carefully. It may help you to copy a photograph or a painting, or even to sketch on the undercoated shield itself. If you adopt this latter approach, remember to keep your paint thin enough to let the pencil lines show through. Next, lay on the highlights using the mixture of red and white. Blend the edges, brow, nose, cheekbones, upper lip and chin. Add a little more white to the mixture and repeat the process to emphasize the highlights you've already made. It isn't often necessary to blend these in. It depends to a degree on the effect you require and your skill level. Small blemishes and creases can be added at this point using very thin colours. After all this highlighting and shading work, your red shield may have lost its original bright red rendering, and it is at this stage that you can re-establish a good base colour by the addition of a glaze or ink on top of the shield. Yellow, orange and red all obtain good results.
but be sure to use a thin enough wash so as not to spoil the good work you have already done. Next, using black or a red and black mix, add the eye sockets and mouth areas. Then add white to the eyes, teeth and fangs. Noting that slight shadow can be useful at the base of the fangs. Whilst painting rows of teeth, the mouth edge becomes irregular and ill-defined, and you may find that it benefits from a black outline. Finally, add the pupils in black. Hours of fun can be had devising the differing expressions, so give it a go.
This Adeptus Titanicus Knight has a tiny little banner between his legs. I can just about make out what it says on there. It says, if you're enjoying this video, then please consider clicking the like button and maybe even subscribing to the channel. That means you, Brent. I can tell you haven't subscribed yet. Also, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, then please consider joining the Patreon, the link to which is in the description below.
As we said earlier, this basic technique can be applied to any flat area. Decoration can be added and the imagery expanded in any way you choose. But you can't expect to achieve a satisfactory result the first time, and remember that you may require 20 or 30 of the same device for a regiment. In this case, it's probably better to use one of the simpler variants described earlier. You could even cut out small details from photographs or printed patterns from magazines or whatever. Eyes might be one answer. So, whatever your ability, there's a method for getting satisfactory results when applying imagery to shields and banners. A word on flags and banners themselves. As we've said before, these can be made from a variety of different materials. Thin card and paper can be easily cut to shape, as can the thin metal sheets that are often used for wine bottle caps. Some tomato puree tubes and paint tubes are still made of thin metal, which once opened out and cleaned, provide the ideal modelling material for this type of thing. Thin wire, needles and cocktail sticks make effective flag and banner poles, while fuse wire makes really good rope lashing. Cheap and cheerful shield embellishments. Phil Lewis made these shield patterns simply by cutting material out of a Sunday supplement. Shield A is flames from a painting. Shield B are patterns from a jewellery feature. Shield C is a bat from a painting. And Shield D is an eyeball. Here we can see Colin Dixon's unusual variation on the face design. Next up is a simple and effective wolf's head design by Colin Dixon. Here we can see a beautifully modelled and painted shield by Fraser Gray. The addition of metal or modelled putty parts to a model gives it that chaotic feel. Here we can see the famous moon face design with a twist by Colin Dixon. A brilliant piece up next, a mutated Chaos Champion with standard of Khorne. The left arm was replaced by a milliput tentacle. The standard on a pole was made from soft wire and itself was cut from paper and directly painted onto. This figure was painted by Darren Matthews. Here is one of Kev Adams' converted goblins. It's an old favourite from Goblin Master Kev, but it has a wonderful face. Dave Andrews' Ultramarine and Banner demonstrates how unit insignia can be developed into an exciting image. Here is a Chaos Warrior with Tiger Head by Dave Andrews. Kev Adams' shield designs bring the best out of the Chaos Champion. This shield of what appears to be a baby's face is by Fraser Gray. This interesting looking odd human face is by Brian George. An interesting maggoted eye painted by Fraser Gray. Simple and decorative solutions to the Orc Boar Riders by graphics man Brian George. Champion of detail Mike McVeigh shows what can be done with patience, skill, a steady hand and a good brush with this ultramarine officer. Skeleton shield designs by Messrs Dixon and Lewis. 40k wizardry by staff artists. The Marines' customised shoulder pads allow the individual artist to make the best use of his skills. Solutions may be simple or intricate, so long as they remain effective. Lastly, we can see two animalistic human-style shields by Brian George.
So Oldhammer style shield designs and banner designs. My eyes went funny there. I have to admit, I think that corn banner, the yellow one, the big one, looked absolutely incredible. Would you like to see some more freehand shields and banners return? If so, let us know in the comments below. If you want to see some more Oldhammer, and I know you do, then check out the playlist up here somewhere. As always, thank you very much for watching, and always remember to drill your barrels.